Namaste and welcome. It is Rishi here from meditatewithrishi.com, and today we are going to be exploring the Nyaya philosophy. This is the first of the 9 Indian philosophies. Okay, so let's get straight into it. Now, it's important to know that the Nyaya philosophy and the next one, Vaisheshika, are actually studied together because they complement each other. So if you're watching today's video, make sure that you watch tomorrow's video as well. And the other thing that you must know is that the Indian philosophies, what they aim to answer ultimately are 3 main questions. Okay, so to get to these 3 main questions, they have each developed an entire science, right? Like yoga. But ultimately, they're trying to answer 3 main questions, which are, who am I? What is my true nature, right? What is the nature of myself? Why do we suffer? And how can we become free of this suffering? Okay, so these are the 3 main questions. Now, Nyaya, of course, also aims to answer these 3 questions. So let's get into this philosophy. So this philosophy was given by, okay, one more thing. This video is titled Applying Indian Philosophies, right? So I'm going to explain the philosophy to you, and then we're going to look at 1 or 2 examples of how can you apply this to your day-to-day life, because what's the point of learning a philosophy if we're not going to apply it, okay? All right. So Nyaya was given by sage Akshapad Gautam, okay? This is 3,000 years ago, more than that. He wrote the first book, which is the Nyaya Sutras, okay? Now, Nyaya means, if you know Hindi, it means justice, okay? It means justice, validation, or logic. So it is the way of getting to the truth by applying logic, okay? It is the science of logic, essentially. So let's get to the first question. What is the cause of suffering according to Nyaya philosophy? Very simple. The cause of suffering is false knowledge, delusional knowledge, confusion, essentially. So, for example, let's say that you are in the dark, right? You're in the dark and you see something. It looks like a snake, but actually when you turn on the light, it is a rope. So because the mind and the senses were not functioning properly, you couldn't see, you actually thought that to be a snake. And because of that false knowledge, you got scared, right? You suffered. There was actual chemical reaction in your body that caused fear, okay? So this is what Nyaya is saying, that whenever you have an experience with your mind and your senses, an experience in life, any type of experience, it gives you knowledge, okay? Now it gives you either true knowledge, which is known as prama, or false knowledge, which is aprama, okay? Now, false knowledge leads to unnecessary mistakes, like thinking that the rope is a snake, and this causes suffering, okay? So this is the idea. Now, I'll give you more examples so it makes even more sense to you, but put it very simply, this is the idea, okay? So if this is the idea, then the question becomes, how do we become free of this suffering? And again, the answer is very simple. If suffering is caused by false knowledge, by delusional knowledge, confusion, then to come out of that suffering, we must get to true knowledge. And the method for getting to true knowledge is by debate, by logic, essentially, okay? So this philosophy is remarkable. It has given us this is 3,000 years ago. It has laid down an entire science of how to debate. This structure that Nyaya philosophy gave on how to conduct a debate was so amazing that it has been used by all the Vedic and non-Vedic philosophies. It is what laid down the whole culture of debate, right, in India. So the structure, essentially, the entire main structure, it has given us 16 methods of debate. Okay, 16 methods of debate. Now, I'm not going to go into all of them now. I will be covering them in my course, which is, I'll be running courses from October. So if you're interested in spirituality and meditation, then head over to meditatewithrishi.com and just sign up so you get notified of when the courses will be available. Okay? But from these 16 methods of debate, it is important that we at least look at a couple. Okay, so the first one, actually the first method of coming to the truth that is given is evidence. It is called pramana. Okay, using evidence as a way to get to the truth. And there are four types of evidence that are considered as true evidence. Okay, so the first one is pratyaksh, which means direct observation. So you, with your senses, you observe something directly and you say, this is the truth. Okay, if that is not possible, the second one is anuman, which means inference, to infer. So if you know from experience that when there's fire, after that there is smoke, right? So if you see smoke, you can then infer that, maybe there must have been fire. This could be evidence of fire, okay? The third one, if you can't infer, the third one is upman, which means comparison. So comparing, when you're making a point, comparing to something. So if you're speaking to somebody who has never seen an ocean, right? But they have seen a lake, for example, then you can tell them that the ocean is like a big lake, okay? And the fourth one is, if you can't even do this, then you can rely on shabda. Shabda simply means words. It means words of an authority on a subject, okay? So whatever subject you're speaking about, if the authority has said something, like if you wanted to know about meditation, then you just go to the Buddha and you see what he has to say, right? Or Patanjali. These are the examples that are given, essentially. So, based on this, right? Based on this, how can we apply this to our life? Because we suffer in many ways and we don't actually apply this simple logic, right? So, for example, so this is now a real life example, right, of how this philosophy can be applied just by using one of these methods, okay? So I'll share an example that most of you can relate with, right? So the very first breakup that we have, you know, when we're very young, maybe in school, right? You get a girlfriend or a boyfriend and this breakup happens, and that breakup is one of the worst things that happens to you, right? So in many situations, it goes like, you know, from the two partners, one is more attached to the other, right? They have, you know, totally fallen in love with this person. And they have now, in their mind, they're already married with kids. They essentially feel that, you know, this will carry on permanently, right? This person will never leave me. This person will never even look or like anybody else. So this is it. I'm sorted for life. And one fine day, the inevitable, that gut-wrenching breakup happens, okay? And the person who is very attached, for them, that is doomsday. That is it. They cannot believe the shock that has entered their life, right? So in this situation, this is essentially what they're feeling essentially is, you know, my life has come to an end, right? I don't want to feel this way. And I'm always like, this feeling is eating them up, right? They can't bear this feeling and they feel like it's going to go on forever, okay? So let's take a look at this example again, right? So you've had an experience, this breakup has happened. Now, from here, this knowledge that has come, right? What you're feeling, what is true for you at that time is my life has come to an end. And this feeling, you feel like this feeling will never go away, okay? So this knowledge, is it true or false? Now, since you've been through the experience, you know that it is false, right? So it's false knowledge. It's false knowledge, but on the back of this false knowledge, people do silly things. So, you know, in a lot of cases, they isolate from their friends. They don't, want to see anybody for some time. In worst cases, right, they can even do self-harm. You hear so many cases where people commit suicide because their girlfriend cheated on them, or vice versa, something like that, right? So this false knowledge leads to unnecessary mistakes, which leads to suffering. Okay, now this may seem like a joke or a funny example, but it is something that we go through, and when you go through it, it is very real. You do not want to be in that position, right? You do not want to suffer. So how then can we apply this Nyaya philosophy to come out of that suffering? Okay, so if we use this model now, let's say, for example, you are experiencing that breakup, okay, and you want to now find the truth. You want to basically find the truth, which is this is not it. This is just a small thing. No big deal, right? I can be happy. You want to find that truth. I can be happy. Okay, so you've made that goal. Now, the first thing you can look is you can do direct observation. It's very easy to see, actually, by direct observation, that there are people who have also gone through this type of breakup, and maybe they're happily married now, 5-10 years later. If that doesn't satisfy you, you can infer, essentially. You can look at people around you and get the idea that most of the people who are happily married right now, they must have gone through this, right? Yeah, I'm not some unique person who has gone through a breakup. Like, they must have gone through this, and they're happy now. So by that, I can also be happy, right? If that is not enough, right, you can compare yourself with other people. You can look for words of authority. This is so easy. In fact, there are many people around you, your siblings, your parents, if they know about your relationship, your cousins, your friends, they're all telling you that, look, this is not, the knowledge that you have is right now is not true. So you think the false knowledge ultimately is that my life has come to an end. Okay, so they will tell you, this is not the end of your life. This is just, it's actually a part of life. It's an experience that you must go through. So don't take it so seriously, right? Then this other false knowledge that I will always feel this way. Again, they will tell you that time will heal you and you will not always feel this way, right? Maybe go and speak to, 3-4 other girls or boys and you'll be totally fine. Ultimately, the point is that if you, in that very emotional state, in that state of suffering, if you applied logic of any kind, obviously, naturally, right? If you try to apply logic and think about something, you will come to the conclusion that this is not a big deal, right? But what's happening in that state? We are not able to do that because we're too attached. So then you may say that, well, in that person, in that situation, that person is too emotionally attached. And yes, that is the problem. And that is where meditation comes in, right? Meditation that's why it is a requirement. If you are somebody that meditates, you will be able to recover from things so much quicker, because what you're doing is you're training your mind to be where you want it to be, on the breath, on the mantra, again and again and again, to come back from all the distractions. So that training directly applies to life, because when something like this happens, you can directly apply it and bring your mind back to the present and say, okay, this happened, let's move past it, right? Become free of suffering, ultimately. So this is a very simple example, okay? Obviously, Nyaya has gone much deeper into how to actually debate. So I've just given you one example, which is the first one, using evidence. There are 15 other methods of how to debate. It is, if anybody wants to know how to debate, they must study this philosophy. And so the first 9 methods are how to debate. And then the next 7 are, or next 6 or 7, you do the math, are how not to debate. How not to debate. So it tells you also what not to do. So for example, the aim of the debate should be, for both parties, should be to find the truth, to arrive at the truth. So the debate should not be the kind of debate we see on TV, where we are trying to defend our position or we are trying to win the debate. The point is not to win the debate. There should be no ego, no irritability, no anger, right? With a clear mind, you're both trying to find the truth. And this is the way the debate should be done, right? So they tell you what to do and what not to do as well. And it is fantastic. It's beautiful. It's really beautiful. So ultimately, we've answered the questions, how can you, what is the cause of suffering? The cause of suffering is false knowledge, delusional knowledge, confusion, okay? Then we've answered the question, how to get out of suffering. To get out of suffering, you use reason, you use logic, right? You debate. And that debate need not be with somebody else. You can debate with yourself, thinking. You can debate with, a book or somebody in your family, something, right? But some way to help you get to the truth, essentially. Now, there is one other question, the main question, which is, what is the nature of myself? Who am I? What is the theory of God, essentially, in this initial Nyaya philosophy? So that we will be covering in tomorrow's video. Because remember, I mentioned that Nyaya and Vaisheshika are complementing each other. Okay, so these two have a very similar view of the concept of God, self, and universe. So we will explore that in tomorrow's video. But I hope this was enjoyable and helpful. So thank you for watching. Namaste.